I gave your number to my friend Liana, and I told her that you're the best sitter in town.
Hello, Connie? Yeah, I think she bought it.
Thanks, Parker. I don't think I'm going to be able to babysit for you anymore. What? Hello?
Carrie, where the hell are you?
She's at another babysitting job. She triple booked herself. I need you, Reese. I need you.
I have this bow in the back of my drawer. Hard for me to reach. Thank you. Oh, goodness.
The film unfolds as a deceptively small, almost mundane story about babysitting, scheduling conflicts, and exhausted adults. Yet when read through a queer, emotionally grounded lens, it becomes a rich meditation on women's labor, emotional invisibility, and the quiet ways queer desire often grows inside spaces, where care is expected, but intimacy is not acknowledged. Carrie, established immediately as the best babysitter in town, is less a character defined by exceptional talent than by overextension. She is needed everywhere, trusted by everyone, and relied upon to hold together households that are fraying at the edges. And this framing matters because it positions her from the outset as someone whose value is tied to her usefulness, rather than her interior life. Many queer women, particularly young ones, recognize this role instinctively: the reliable helper, the emotionally competent girl who absorbs stress so others can function, who is praised for responsibility while quietly burning out. Carrie's decision to enlist Evie and Parker when the calls all come in on the same night is not just logistical but symbolic, marking the moment when her private strain spills outward and necessitates community, a theme that recurs throughout the film as the characters discover that survival and later self-understanding cannot happen in isolation. Scene 1, centered on Magdalene and Carter, sets the emotional tone with striking precision by embedding queer revelation inside the rhythms of domestic fatigue, rather than spectacle. The dialogue is clipped, practical, full of interruptions about naps, errands, and timing, reflecting how women's lives are so often structured around caretaking before self-expression is even conceivable. Reese's apology for falling asleep, her anxiety about school and workload, reads as a familiar confession of inadequacy in a world that expects endless competence, while Mrs. Carson's response oscillates between reassurance and dependence, exposing a dynamic where Reese's labor has become not just helpful but essential. The line "I need you" Reese lands with particular weight because it exists at the intersection of emotional truth and unspoken desire, and the film wisely allows that ambiguity to breathe rather than rushing to clarify it. When Reese admits she can no longer babysit, the fear in Mrs. Carson's response is not merely about childcare logistics, but about losing the one person who made her life feel manageable, a fear many women experience when the emotional scaffolding they rely on threatens to disappear. This exchange resonates deeply with queer audiences because it mirrors how queer women are often positioned as emotional anchors in others' lives while their own needs remain unexamined, their presence normalized but their longing unacknowledged. The eventual confession of mutual crushes emerges not as a dramatic rupture, but as a soft unveiling, a moment that feels both overdue and terrifying, precisely because it challenges the unspoken agreement that care must remain non-romantic, gratitude must remain non-desiring, and intimacy must remain safely coded. The repetition of "I've had a crush on you for a long time" underscores how long queer feelings can circulate without resolution, echoing back and forth internally before finally being spoken aloud, and the reassurance of "it's okay" functions less as permission for romance than as a radical declaration that naming desire does not automatically destroy safety. This scene reflects society's discomfort with women loving women not through overt hostility but through silence and misdirection, through the way such feelings are expected to remain subtextual, excusable only if they never demand acknowledgement. The film's refusal to sensationalize this moment is crucial. By keeping the focus on trust, vulnerability, and emotional risk, it affirms that queer connection is not an aberration but an extension of care already present. As the narrative widens beyond this first household to include Evie and Parker's parallel babysitting experiences, the film builds a mosaic of women navigating different versions of the same pressures, being young but responsible, desired but unseen, competent but exhausted. Evie's storyline emphasizes performance and self-doubt, her constant recalibration to meet expectations mirroring how queer women often learn to read rooms carefully, adjusting tone and presence to remain acceptable. while Parker's arc highlights resistance and confusion, a struggle between authenticity and the fear of misinterpretation that many queer viewers will recognize as formative. The chaos that ensues across the night, miscommunications, emotional flare-ups, small crises, serves less as comedy than as a structural device exposing how fragile these systems are when built on women's unpaid or underappreciated labor. Carrie, moving between crises, becomes the connective tissue of the film, embodying both the strength and the cost of being indispensable, and her interactions with her friends gradually shift from managerial to confessional, allowing her to articulate exhaustion, doubt, and a dawning awareness that being needed is not the same as being known. For lesbian and broader LGBTQ+ audiences, Carrie's arc speaks to the slow realization that usefulness can function as a shield against vulnerability, that staying busy can delay self-discovery, and that saying yes to everyone often means saying no to oneself. The film's emotional climax does not hinge on romantic fulfillment alone, but on recognition. Carrie seeing her friends as whole people with their own desires and limits, Evie and Parker seeing Carrie not as an organizer but as a young woman allowed to falter, and each woman confronting the truth that emotional safety cannot be maintained through silence indefinitely. Society's discomfort with women expressing love for each other persists, the film suggests, because such expression disrupts hierarchies of care, removing men from the center of emotional narratives and revealing how deeply women rely on each other in ways that exceed friendship but have historically lacked language. By portraying queer connection as emerging from shared exhaustion, mutual support, and honest conversation rather than fantasy, the film challenges the notion that women's love for women is either invisible or inherently transgressive. Instead, it frames it as an honest response to being truly seen, to having one's effort acknowledged without condition. Symbolically, each woman represents a different negotiation with visibility. Reese as the woman whose care has been normalized until it becomes emotionally indispensable, Mrs. Carson as the woman confronting her own dependence and desire, Carrie as the woman stretched thin by expectation, Evie as the woman performing competence, and Parker as the woman resisting categorization. Their interactions mirror real-world pressures on queer women to minimize feelings, to justify attachment through usefulness, to hide longing behind professionalism or humor, and to fear that honesty will result in loss. Yet the film ultimately argues that visibility, while risky, is also liberating, and that the cost of remaining unseen is a slow erosion of self. By centering women's experiences without voyeurism, by allowing queer desire to surface through dialogue, trust, and shared humanity, the film offers an affirmation to viewers seeking authenticity rather than spectacle, reminding them that their longing is not excessive, their need for connection is not shameful, and their stories, rooted in care and courage, deserve to be told plainly and believed. The film, when taken as a whole and read carefully through a queer, emotionally grounded lens that centers women's experiences, reveals itself not as a light babysitting mishap story, but as a complex, unsettling, and ultimately clarifying meditation on power, care, visibility, and the uneven terrain queer women must navigate while trying to remain safe, authentic, and emotionally intact. Carrie's position as the best babysitter in town is not a compliment so much as a social diagnosis. She is young, capable, dependable, and therefore endlessly relied upon, a familiar role for many women and particularly for queer women who are often taught implicitly and explicitly that their worth lies in how well they manage others' needs.